Greetings from Castle Goring, from a very sweet smelling Mickey Aurora, and from me. My girls have been to the beauty parlour and they have got themselves beautified by their beautician, who has titivated them. She's cut their hair. She's made them smell sweet like you can't believe, all for this evening, so that they will be able to show themselves to great credit for Care for Veterans. So, well, before plunging in, I want to make an observation. I hope this global Microsoft IT outage is a big wake-up call for people all over the world, that this is a more than likely inadvertent taste of what is going to come if we do not insist that our leaders pursue peace instead of conflict. Make no mistake about it. Any adversary we have will have the ability to knock us out, IT-wise, just as how we will have the ability to knock them out. And I'm going to leave you with the thoughts of Albert Einstein, who said, "I don't know what weapons are going to be used in the Third World War, but sticks and stones, I am sure, will be used in the Fourth." We should not, as a society, be focusing on the trivialities. We should be focusing on the big picture. And the big picture is that our civilization is in danger, in part because of politicians. One could say largely because of politicians. And I'm going to leave it at that. But I have to say, my thinking is that the only way that we as a civilization are going to actually preserve the tremendous advantages that have accrued to us as a civilization in my lifetime is by insisting upon peace, and ultimately, and I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again, and I'm sure I'll have to say it time and again in the future, we need to take to the streets in our millions and march for peace. And all the nonsense and rhetoric involving anything else, well, we've had a little taste of what will come if we do not, as a society and a civilization, insist that we end up having peace, and that we do not provoke any adverse actions from any quarters, and that when there are adverse actions that have not been instigated by us and are not a retaliation for some machination that we have done, that we get it handled in such a way that civilization's benefits will be preserved into the future. Otherwise, you can depend on it, they will not. This global Microsoft IT outage is a taste, a teensy-weensy taste of how very easy and very quick it is for our society and civilization to be cast back 50 and 100 years in the blink of an eyelid. So, without further ado, we are going to go on to less serious and hopefully more entertaining matters, although the first one is actually still pretty serious. But then we're going to get on to the lighter, gossipy stuff. Jane Mansfield says, without a why, Lady C, what do you make of reports that President Trump's would-be assassin research history shows that he was investigating Princess Kate? Well, Thomas Krooks also was investigating President Biden. He investigated former President Trump. President Trump was easier to reach than President Biden and would have been a lot easier to reach for a 20-year-old American in the middle of the United States of America than reaching the Princess of Wales. So I think either he was simply interested in famous people, but who knows? He could have had it in for Catherine because, well, he believed all the lies that Meghan and Harry had been telling. That's a possibility too. The question is not one that one wants to make too light of, in the light of the fact that he has died and that President Trump nearly died. And we really don't know enough yet. And also, one always approaches information with skepticism. How much of it is accurate? How much of it is propaganda? One always should be skeptical. Quantum Entanglement says, Dear Lady C, Dominic Reed, CEO of Invictus Games, has stepped down. This is not the only Invictus staff member that has left the organization. In your opinion, is this latest resignation an indication that the games are in disarray following the Pat Tillman Award and the usage of charity monies to supplement the Viper and her husband? God bless. Well, quantum entanglement, I don't know who you mean when you speak about the Viper and her husband. I have no idea who you're speaking about. Mr. Piggles says he has an idea, however, and he's going to go woo, and he's going to go woo right into Montecito. Well, to answer the question more seriously, I think I've made the point for some while now that there is tremendous disapproval within the military for the way Harry and Meghan have conducted themselves and the way they have actually exploited the Invictus Games so that it's, in terms of attention, not about the competitors. It's about Harry and Meghan. We also have Admiral Lord West having waded into the fray, and believe me, somebody of that seniority does not wade into the fray without there being a consensus behind the scenes. You know, top naval officers are team players. They're not mavericks. That's why Harry never stood a chance of ever being anything of any significance in the army, because he's clearly not a team player. Well, I suppose he is. He plays on Team Megsy Baby. Yes, he does. Oh, Meg, please, just one little job. One. Why won't I give you any of that? I mean, go listen to Stan Getz and hum to Blowing in the Wind. That's the only blowing that you should be getting. Blowing in the wind. That's the blowing that you deserve. Unless, of course, you want to be blown off. But, sweetie pie, of course you know I truly love you. Oh, Meg, I don't think you do. Oh, but, honey bun, of course I love you. I can't. The millions of ways in which I love you are too much to express. Oh, do you really, Meg? Yes, you really do? Maybe I shouldn't think of packing it in and going to England. No, baby, of course you shouldn't. I mean, I can think of millions of reasons to love you. You're just so wonderful. Oh, I don't suppose money would be one of them. Oh, don't be cynical, H. Come on. Let's reserve that for the royal family and all those creeps who want to do us in. Yes, is the answer. Quantum entanglement. There is little doubt that behind the scenes there's a lot of pressure and people do not approve of the way things have been handled. And Harry, my understanding is, from people I have spoken to, is not amenable to reason. He is very headstrong, and he still regards himself by right as a leading prince in the world. Marilyn says, what billionaire is going to want her? She is a middle-aged woman and they look for young girls. Not all. Jeff Bezos has a middle-aged woman. She's well into her 50s. Lauren Sanchez. I mean, say what you will about Lauren Sanchez. She's definitely colourful. She's definitely graphic. She's definitely vivid. And I'm sure she knows how to satisfy a man. And look at how Jeff Bezos has got pumped up since he was with her. I suspect Lauren Sanchez knows how to do a lot more than fly a plane or a helicopter. But is Meghan in that category? I wouldn't have said so. I mean, Lauren Sanchez may be the absolute epitome of vulgarity, but she has a vividness, she has an authenticity, and she has a style that is, in its grotesque way, quite, I suppose, appealing would be a stretch, but let's settle upon that word. However, the likelihood is that, except for a very disturbed or very dumb billionaire, and I'm sure there must be at least one floating around somewhere, they're not going to want Meghan, because Meghan is toxic. Meghan is reviled. Meghan is despised. Meghan isn't respected. Had Meghan been clever, she would have done a Jackie, and she would have spent a few years in the royal family. Then she would have left the victim of a cruel husband instead of a cruel institution. Talk about cocking it up. Phoenix on Molokai says, Princess Catherine is the epitome of grace, beauty, and elegance. That she certainly is. And I have read it out because that is a comment that is very representative. She is graceful, she is beautiful, she is elegant. Catherine is a genuine personality. Now, I know people who actually aren't that crazy about Catherine. I happen to think she's extremely admirable. But I have one or two friends who aren't crazy about Catherine. Nevertheless, she is the epitome of grace, beauty, and elegance. And I say she deserves every bit of credit she gets, because also what Catherine has done is what Camilla has done, and what any person worth their while in the public eye who gets bad press does. What they do is they simply rise above it. You do not acknowledge save to sue. You do not acknowledge. You do not discuss it publicly, generally. You do not, while it's going on, necessarily walk into a room and moan and groan about it. When the press is being unfair to you, you either sue or rise above it and shut up and act as if it's not happening. Meghan should have tried doing that, instead of which she was complaining that the tremendous good press that she was getting wasn't good enough. Now that's greed, if ever there was any. Lou A says, Maggie Carparkle, love it, could improve her image as a start by approaching her father. It's his 80th birthday this week, I believe. Many think it cruel the way she is keeping the invisibles, providing they are actually real children, away from their grandfather, closely followed by allowing the children to see their other grandfather. This is just the tip of the iceberg, but such an obvious start as to how mean and nasty most people find her. Is there a small part of her that feels remorse for dropping her family like a ton of hot bricks when it wasn't in her interest to have them in the background? Well, my understanding is that Meghan is remorseless, and that Meghan doesn't feel remorse, and that Meghan is relentless, and that Meghan will only change tack if she realizes it is in her practical interests to do so. You know, I think it's called a faux apology or a faux change of direction. I know from her father himself how distressed he is by the whole thing. But I'm going to share something with you because, of course, I wished him a happy birthday. And he responded, and he made it absolutely clear that one of the only good things to come out of this truly dreadful situation is the tremendous amount of kindness he has got from people at large. So people's good wishes do matter to him. And I would recommend that anybody who wants to wishes him well. I actually also think, if I throw this out as an idea which has just occurred to me, Thomas Markle has turned 80. He's in very poor health. He never thought he'd see 80. He doesn't have any money. If ever anybody deserved a really good birthday present from people who respect and admire him, I think it's Thomas Markle. And I think it would be wonderful if somebody, and I wouldn't actually suggest it to Thomas Markle because I know he'd say no, but I think, what do you think about us starting a Thomas Markle birthday fund? I'll start it if many of you think that it's deserving of support. And each of us gives what we can afford to help to make his life a bit more pleasant, a bit more comfortable, a bit less challenging, and for us to show him that we feel for him. So if you think it's a good idea, do let me know. Okay, and I will mobilize, and I will be the first one to kick off the whole thing. So, Teresa Faria says, "Dear Lady C, wouldn't the truth, big block capitals, about the conception and birth of those invisikids help Harry in a court of law? This whole children thing is absolutely bizarre." Well, and I need to be very careful how I respond to this for legal reasons. The fact of the matter is the speculation surrounding those children and the speculation and the bizarre behaviour of Meghan during her first pregnancy, because we got very few glimpses of her during her second pregnancy, save to see a protuberance the like of which looked as if all the Hebrew slaves had been released on the pyramid and it had gone from vertical to horizontal and managed to attach itself to her stomach area and round off as well. So grotesquely huge was it as she slithered in the Netflix series. So yes, whether she did one thing or another, she certainly did something. And whatever she did was sufficiently remarkable as to be remarked upon. And in a court of law, that would certainly, if brought up, cast doubt upon her, shall we say, behaviour. Let's leave it at that. The problem is Harry would have gone along with whatever it was, whether it was stuffing, padding, whatever, or because she definitely did something, because, I mean, you know, at Birkenhead, for instance, where people say that it was the wind that was blowing the protuberance between her legs by the hem of the skirt can't have been the wind, because the baby bump was no longer where it was supposed to be. You only need to look at those photographs to see that whether the baby bump had slipped or not, and I need to say this for legal reasons, because I need to be very careful how I put things. The fact of the matter is that the photographs do tell a tale, and the tale is that the protuberance that she arrived with and left with at a certain point simply was no longer protruding to the extent that it had protruded previously. That's what the photographs show. All of this in a court of law where a barrister had the right to cross-examine would be extremely awkward. But not only for Meghan, it would be awkward for Harry as well. Because using that, well, I suppose his defense could be that he was being a loyal husband. And he was worried that if he didn't support her, she might do something radical, because she had told him that she was thinking in those terms. Boo-hoo-hoo! One tail left eye, one tail left eye. One unlikely flyer says, "Greetings from the US, Lady C. Greetings from Castle Goring. Love your channel and the royal family, and always enjoy your commentary on the various members. You are spot on regarding how Harry and Meghan's popularity and goodwill are in steep decline here. I know I am." Thank you very much for that, one unlikely flower. I know I am. I take soundings. I don't speculate. I take soundings. I believe in availing myself of information and then conveying it. And Harry and Meghan's popularity has tanked in the United States, and the goodwill that they had initially, they don't have anymore. And a large part of it is not only the way they have mistreated her father, but the way they have mistreated his father and his sister-in-law, who is universally admired with some justification. Walmer Estate says, "They have been very careful to keep their married life well hidden while breaching other people's privacy, but each would know secrets about the other one. So if they ever got divorced, things could get very interesting." Well, they certainly could. All that mud being thrown, it would be a pig's delight. In fact, my flying pig would want to go, "Ooh," and put its snout in that muck and enjoy being such a pig. It would be very interesting. And you can depend on it. A good percentage of it wouldn't even be accurate or true either. So it would be a saga that could play and play and play and play and play. And Meghan is very much the Angelina Jolie type. So if Harry departs, Meghan is certainly going to go out of her way to make absolutely sure that she traduces his reputation. and does a maximum injury. Now, I know there are many people who admire Angelina Jolie. I think she's a fine actress. I also think she is an appalling mother. That's my take on it. I know people who know what's gone on. And Brad Pitt, yes, he had a bit of a drinking problem, but she ought to know all about substance abuse. After all, she has personal experience of it as well. And to turn their children against their father, I think, is inexcusable. Just because he wanted the children to be brought up in a stricter, more traditional way than her. And I'll tell you one lesson that you learn in the 12-step program is that when the children are young, they are perfectly happy to go along with the parent who is less strict, less rigid, who will traduce the other parent. It's usually the substance abuser who is less strict. But every now and then, it's not. And Brad Pitt, I am told, wanted those children to have more structure than they did. Well, of course, they were going to be absolutely thrilled to have a mother who was saying, oh no, do whatever you want, it's fine. You feel in the mood for this, just do it. Well, his way of parenting was, excuse me, no, that's wrong, that's right. You need to do this, whether you want or not, it's beside the point. I think it's called discipline. Well, the children are still young enough to have seen that, well, let me rephrase that. The children are still young enough to have not seen their father and what he intended in terms of their goodwill. And any mother who encourages her children to not see their father and to spurn their father to the extent that they disavow his name, I'm sorry, is appalling, in my opinion. Appalling. Lynn Trick says, hi, Lady C. You were saying that due to tax reasons, hapless Harry cannot return to the UK to live until 2026. But in the event of the US throwing him out of the country, although I can't see it happening, but just in case it did, where would Harry stand then? Would he have to go and live in another country until 2026? Would any other country want him though? If he had to return for some reason, do you think the king would pay his huge tax bill for him just to make things easier? What are your thoughts on this? Even though it's just supposition. Love to you, Aurora and Mickey. Well, Mickey and Aurora and I send love back. Thank you very much. I'll answer the question. I don't think he's going to be booted out of the United States of America, but if he were, he could live anywhere else. I absolutely know as a fact that the king would not be stumping up his tax bill under any circumstances. People seem to think that the king is some sort of wishy-washy creature. You know, the king is quite a toughie in his own way. Look at how he said he was not giving up Camilla, and nobody could do anything about it. He would not ever, my understanding is, be settling Harry's tax bill, a tax bill that was in large part brought about because Harry lied and betrayed the interests of his family in his book Spare, and made up all sorts of nonsensical stories and was malicious and set out to damage the Queen, the late Queen, no, the present Queen. But he didn't mind damaging the late Queen either. No, Charles will not stump up his tax bill, so he would have to go and live elsewhere. Well, I don't know. Maybe Nigeria would be the place to go, after all. Meghan's 43% Nigerian. I'm sure with that amount of Nigerian blood, she could come up with a few ancestors that would make citizenship by descent very easy for her to acquire. Well, actually, maybe not. Remember, the First Lady of Nigeria is not a fan. But who knows? Maybe if the Chief of the Defence Staff decided that he'd roll a few tanks by the presidential palace and say, give my Harry, my compatriot's husband, citizenship or at least residency. Otherwise, I'm afraid I'm going to have to do to you what the Aurora did to the Winter Palace. And that's why Kerensky had to resign. And that's how Lenin became leader of the communist state of the Soviet Union. Let's see how it evolves. But I think nothing's going to change in that regard. But wouldn't it be fun if it did? Wouldn't it be fun? I think an awful lot of people would think, well, there is such a thing as justice in the world, and it's not only meted out to those who are disadvantaged, it's also meted out to those who are advantaged. And on that note, I'll say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please remember, I need your input in the questions and comments so that I will know what we should be addressing. Thank you so much. Godspeed. Enjoy the rest of your day. I hope to enjoy the rest of mine. I think we are going to have a fabulous time at the Castle Goring Summer Ball. Things are already heaving downstairs with preparations. Godspeed. Bye-bye. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you care to like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and take good care. Bye-bye.